Hello everyone and welcome back to another reading wrap up. If you're new here, my name is Stacey and this is a channel where we talk about books. So last year I completed the Dymocks Reading Challenge, which is where the bookstore Dymocks sends out a series of prompts throughout the year to encourage you to read more diversely and to find some new books and to hopefully read more. So I've decided to continue with the reading challenge this year, and this is going to be a wrap up of the books that I read from January to April. So I've got my prompt card that I picked up in store, and I'm going to work my way through the order that I did the prompt. So let's get straight in with the first prompt, which was Golden Hour. So this is a book with colours of the rising or setting sun on the cover. I don't actually have the physical copy of the book that I read anymore, but the book was Mistakes and Other Lovers. Elle O'Reilly is exceptionally good at making mistakes. Mistakes like falling in love with the charismatic youth pastor Mace while engaged to her high school boyfriend, breaking up with her fiance the night before Valentine's Day, walking out on her family, dropping out of uni with no plan B, ghosting her old friends, kissing her new friends, sleepless nights with beers and bongs and boys and girls. But when Mace proposes to someone else, Elle's world finally breaks, blah, 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 blah. It's basically it was a coming of age novel. And I struggled with this one. My review, let's actually go in with I left a review for this one on Goodreads. So my review said, where was the plot? Also, the characters were so unlikable, and Elle has an obsession with mentioning Instagram every second page. Then the phrase, "you're not like other girls," was used on more than one occasion. I just can't. I read this one in a reading vlog at the start of the year, and this was a book where I just didn't look forward to picking it up. It was just boring. I didn't care for any of the characters. I didn't like any of the characters. I actually ended up listening to it whilst reading it because I found that I was reading and it just wasn't going in. So look, that was Mistakes and Other Lovers. I gave that one 2 stars. Let's move on. So my next prompt that I did was Love in All Forms, which is a book that explores love in various shapes and sizes. You already know where I'm gonna go with this. I read Heartstopper Volume 2. I have all of the hardcovers of Heartstopper up to number 5. And look, I think I said this when I was last talking about Heartstopper. I just love the characters. I love that it's like a comfort. The show is a comfort show for me. So the book is just one of those where I know I'm gonna just have a lovely time reading it, spend about an hour and a half flicking through, because of course they're all graphic novels. And if you don't know Heartstopper, it follows the story of Nick and Charlie and the development of their relationship, but then also it takes a look at their friends' relationships and just the whole dynamic of love. And they're graphic novels which Alice Oseman initially started as, I believe, online comics on Tumblr, and then she published the novel. So I, of course, read Volume 2. I love it so much. 5 stars, easily 5 stars. Okay, next was New Year, New Books, which is a book from your TBR. And as we can see, there's a lot going on my TBR. The book that I went for this prompt was The Happy Couple by Nersha Dolan. I think I'm saying her name right. It is an Irish name. I'm so sorry if I've said it wrong. So this was a really interesting one because it followed 4 main characters, and you'll see it's got the different parts of the bride, the bridesmaid, the best man, the groom, the wedding, the guest, and the wedding day. So the bride and groom are Celine and Luke. Phoebe is the bridesmaid, that's Celine's sister. Archie is Luke's best man and ex-boyfriend. And the guest is Vivian, which is Luke's other best friend and other ex. And then it says, as the wedding approaches, these 5 lives intersect Each character will find themselves looking for a path to their happily ever after, but does it lie at the end of an aisle? This was a great contemporary read, and I've got another one of Nersha Dolan's books. Exciting Times, I can see it right at the top, the red cover. I have Exciting Times, and Nersha Dolan, she writes books from LGBTQIA+ perspectives. This one was really easy to just kind of fly through. It had a little bit of drama, a few little twists in there. This was a solid 3 stars for me. Okay, I'm very excited about this next book. The next prompt was On the Rise, which is a novel by a debut author. I'm so excited to talk about this book because it was just bizarre. I read Brat by Gabriel Smith. First of all, this cover, how can you not be drawn to this? Look how cool that is. I would get that as a tattoo. That's very cool. This was bizarre. Let's try and verbalize this with some coherence. So, this is how the blurb starts. Gabriel's skin is falling off. His dad is dead. He owes his editor a novel. His girlfriend won't answer his calls. Tasked by his horribly well-adjusted brother with clearing out the family home for sale, Gabriel's sanity quickly begins to unravel. His parents' old manuscripts appear to change each time he reads them. A bizarre home video hints at long-buried secrets, and there's a hideous man in the garden. Disquieting yet hilarious, taut yet lyrical, blisteringly paced and formally inventive, Brat is a meditation on grief, art and love that will leave you altered, breathless and desperate for more. First of all, when the first line of a blurb is Gabriel's skin is falling off, you know you're going to be in for a wild ride. So this man's skin is literally peeling off. There's a few, there's quite a lot of reference to bodily horror in this book. It's kind of like a gothic, it's a poetic gothic contemporary horror. Do with that what you will. The prose is very inventive. The structure on the pages, you can see, is not typical of a normal novel. My review of this one was a bizarre and haunting exploration of grief with body horror and gothic styling. I just was intrigued again. First of all, captivated by the cover. Second of all, just the flair and how unique this voice was. There's also little references to the manuscript that they were talking about, and it was just bizarre. So if you like something that is a little bit different, a little bit unusual, a little bit gothic, this is for you. This was excellent, very captivating, very unique. I gave this one 4 stars, and I'm very excited about Gabriel Smith as a debut author. Okay, the next book that I read was the prompt for International Women's Day. I did read this one a little bit before International Women's Day, but that's okay because we should be celebrating women every day, right? So this was celebrating diverse female voices, and I went with Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. So this is set in Britain through lots of different voices and characters. There's 12 different characters' stories that we follow, and they're all from different parts of the country, and it's set across more than a century of change. So it's not a linear story, it's more kind of vignettes, but then some of those vignettes cross over through generations and through the different relationships with the characters. So we've got, it's split into 5 chapters. Chapters 1 to 4 have 3 characters each, and then we have the after party and the epilogue. So we have Amma, Yaz, Dominique, Carol, Boomy, Letitia, Shirley, Winsome, Penelope, Megan/Morgan, Hattie, and Grace. Now this won the Booker Prize in 2019, and I was really looking forward to reading this one. I think for me, the thing that I struggled with was the structure. And some of the, I guess, creative choices in how it was written. So things like no speech marks, no capital letters at the starts of sentences, I feel like my brain has to work a little bit harder when they take out the grammatical conventions. For the same reason I struggled with Sally Rooney. And look, maybe it's something that I would get used to. There were some really interesting chapters in here, and definitely some characters that I felt I read a little bit quicker than others. The really important thing about this novel is the importance of the voices of Black women, and that was something that I really enjoyed in reading this novel, was actually getting to understand that perspective, learn more about that perspective. It's a really lovely exploration of womanhood, but just something about the writing style didn't quite captivate me. But still a very solid read. I can understand why it got nominated for the Booker Prize. It's so important. It covers some really important themes. But from a structure perspective, from a stylistic perspective, I think that's what slowed me down in reading it. So this one was 3 stars. Next prompt was Sunscreen and Salt, and it was a story that feels like sandy beaches, salty air, and carefree days. I looked at the recommendations for this one for some inspiration, and I landed on The Gentleman from Peru by Andre Ackerman, who is the author of Call Me By Your Name. First of all, the cover is stunning. This was not actually what I was expecting it to be. So it's about a group of friends from, I believe, university. And they're on the Amalfi Coast in Italy, which, first of all, stunning setting, lovely. Hit the brief of sunscreen and salt. There's a hotel guest there who sits on the veranda every night and he smokes. They find him very intriguing. Then they invite him to have lunch with them. And he basically has these strange abilities, and he tells them this story and he takes them on this kind of journey. It really wasn't what I was expecting. I actually think this is starting to lean into magical realism. Super short, first of all, so you can fly through it. It says here, deeply atmospheric and sensual, The Gentleman from Peru weaves achingly poignant insight into a story of regret, fate, and epic love. This was a very easy read, quite a nice little palate cleanser. I think it had an interesting concept, and there was some really nice prose in there. I would like to read Call Me By Your Name. So this was kind of a nice introduction into Ackerman's style. I do, however, feel that it under-delivered in terms of the execution. So I think it had this really interesting concept that really hooked me in, but then when it was being delivered out, I felt like, that's how I felt. So look, a great short novel, a quick novel, a great way to get yourself out of a slump or get yourself, interested in Ackerman's writing style. Again, solid 3 stars for this one. So the next prompt, I actually ended up trying a couple of books. The first one that I tried was Cicada House. Couldn't get into it, DNF'd it, was bored. We don't need to talk about that. So the prompt was Cicada's Song, which is a book about transformation, whether that's through nature or personal growth. This book was given to me by my beautiful friend. She read it for her book club, and then she said, I think you'll like it, and it actually fit quite well with this prompt, which was great. So I read The Vegetarian by Han Kang, which was also the winner of the Man Booker International Prize. This was so fascinating. This was so interesting. It was translated from Korean by Deborah Smith, and this follows the story of Young Hai. So it's split into 3 parts. Part 1 is called The Vegetarian, part 2 is Mongolian Mark, and part 3 is Flaming Trees. And each part is told from a different perspective. So I believe the first one was from the perspective of the husband, the second one is the perspective of a friend, and the third one is the perspective, I believe, of her sister. So Young Hai, she decides that she wants to stop eating meat because she had a nightmare. Yes, she had a nightmare, and decides to refuse eating meat, which causes huge uproar. But the thing with this book is it's actually a lot deeper than that. It goes beyond that. So she stops eating meat. She then loses a lot of weight, but it's also an exploration of rebellion, trauma, power, femininity, psychology, desire. There's so much packed in here. On Goodreads, I wrote a deeply complex exploration of body autonomy, mental health, societal expectations, power, patriarchy, sexuality, transformation, and control, all woven with a combination of metaphorical and highly evocative visual language that aims to create some deeply disturbing imagery. This is the kind of book that has so many layers and interpretations. It is so much more than a woman giving up meat. The kind of book you need to be switched on for that will make you reflect on life in a way you may not have before. It was just fascinating. So in terms of the prompt, the journey that this character goes on is very much a psychological transformation, a physical transformation. So this one was 3.5 stars for me. Yeah, I found it really interesting. I found the concept just fascinating, and it was really good to read something that was a little bit different for me. The next prompt was Top 101, which is a book from the Dymocks Book Lovers Top 101 list. And I'm so excited to talk about this book. I read Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. Oh, I loved this book. So I first read Dolly Alderton. I read Good Material, which was a novel, and then this was an autobiographical book. A memoir, more than an autobiography, it's a memoir. And it's following Dolly through her 20s. The first chapter is about her as a teenager, and then it goes forward and we kind of get to experience her life throughout her 20s, and then there's a chapter at the end that says Everything I Know at 30. And I just found this was such a comfort read. It was funny, it was sharp, it was witty, but it was also quite emotional in places. I really love the way that Dolly Alderton writes. I find it so easy to devour her books. This one has received a lot of hype, and rightly so, for all the right reasons. She talks about her relationship with drugs and alcohol. She talks about the relationships that she's had throughout her 20s. She talks about where she's lived, work situations, family situations, expectations. And the really nice thing about this book is there's kind of anecdotes in there. Then there's occasionally these emails that are kind of woven through. Then there will be some lists. And then she also has these really lovely recipes that she puts through. So there is one here for her hungover mac and cheese, which again is it was just lovely, and I found it really comforting. I spent one Sunday just sitting and finishing this book and just thoroughly enjoyed every single part of it. So if you haven't yet read Dolly Alderton, or if you haven't read Everything I Know About Love, I highly recommend this one. This was a 4.5 star read. Okay, I have 2 more books to talk about. One is a prompt, the last prompt from the challenge, and one was a little extra that I snuck in there. So the final prompt that I read was Nostalgia Trip, which was, not me trying to reach it whilst I'm explaining the prompt, a classic, a story that is a classic. I read a very short book for this one. I read Fyodor Dostoevsky's The Meek One. Dostoevsky has been quite controversial, I believe. He wrote a book called The Double. So this one is about a man who essentially drives his wife to suicide. He's not a nice man, he's a very controlling man. And that's it, that's the story. I didn't actually give this one a rating, and I will tell you why. It is because I find it really hard to rate classics. I don't think classics are there to be rated. I think they are there to be learnt from. I think they are there to make you think. I think they're there to make you draw comparisons between classic literature and current politics and societal themes and issues. I don't feel like it's easy to sit and, you know, say, I thought that this classic piece of writing was a 4-star. Like, it's just, I don't know. I don't feel like it's easy to rate classics. I didn't rate this one, as in I didn't give it a rating, but I did find it incredibly interesting. I know that this book has also been called The Quiet One, and it's very much about placing the man as a manipulative, controlling, insecure man. And I think that the great thing with classics is that you can take it and you can, you know, you can be quite critical with it. So it was interesting to me how they depicted the female characters in this one. But a very interesting read, and I actually think it's really important to read books that challenge you, that, you know, get you to do a bit of research into the era, into, you know, how this was first received, how the author is received. So I always struggle with classics, and I think it's because in my brain I'm, you know, admittedly frightened of them, because again, sometimes I find it hard to get my teeth into them. And I think you have to find the right kind of classic authors, just like with any author, that work for you, that you enjoy. But I would be very open to reading some more of his work, and it does allow me to start expanding my classic repertoire. So I had read 9 books by the completion of the Dymocks Reading Challenge, and then my 10th book for January to April, with a little bonus that I threw in there, which was Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. If you don't know Hannah Bonham Young, she is a romance author, and she specialises in writing about marginalised, diverse characters. So it says here on the back, she writes romance featuring a cast of diverse, disabled, marginalised and LGBTQIA+ people, where swoon-worthy storylines blend with beautiful, messy and challenging realities of life, which is a really beautiful way, I think, of actually introducing this story. So both of these characters have limb differences. Wynn's is with her hand and Beau's is with his leg. And two of them hook up at a party and Wynn becomes pregnant. It's not a spoiler, it's literally written on the back of the book that Wynn finds herself pregnant. So we've got a pregnancy trope in here. That it's essentially about how they then embark on this new unexpected chapter in their life as 2 young adults, both with different limb differences, and what that's going to look like for where they're at in their life. And it's very fluffy, it's very lovely, it's got some nice little moments, couple of spicy scenes thrown in there. I think the thing that I've realised with this book, and I've talked about, you know, my journey with romance books before, I'm still finding my way in the romance world, and finding what tropes I guess I enjoy. I just don't think I can get on board with the pregnancy trope. I don't know why. I was like, oh, okay. I think, which is bad because I literally picked up a book that says this woman is pregnant, and then I was like, oh, I didn't like the pregnancy. It's not that I didn't like it. I think I just kind of got over it. I was like, okay, this is it now. So look, if you like a pregnancy trope, if you like, I guess it's, what other tropes would this be? I guess it's not really forced proximity because they kind of make that decision. Maybe friends to lovers, but not really because they hooked up at a party. I don't know. But if you like fluffy and sweet and nice, then absolutely this is the book for you. I think I just like something with a bit more oomph, a little bit more gutsy, perhaps. Very, considering earlier on in this video I was talking about a book where the man's skin is falling off. So look, I think Hannah Bonham Young writes very, very nicely, very easy to read. I also have a little bit of an unpopular opinion with romance novels. This book was 409 pages. This may be an unpopular opinion, but again, it's a safe space, it's my channel. I personally just don't think that a romance novel needs to be 400 pages long. I think that the points are made a lot earlier, and then, you know, and then it just starts to feel dragged out. That's just my opinion. That's my opinion. That's just my opinion, but I know that there are people that love a nice lengthy romance, and good for you. I love a nice lengthy lit fic. Maybe you don't. That's why this community is so great, because we all have different tastes. So that one, what did I give that one? Well, I haven't, this has felt chaotic. This was it was a solid 3 stars. So that's it for January to April. The next one will be May to August. So I will be updating you on what I will be reading for the next few prompts. If you are a bookish creator, or if you just like to enjoy bookish content, then please don't forget to follow me on TikTok and Instagram, and subscribe to my YouTube channel where I talk about what I've been reading. And whilst I'm doing these challenges, I'm reading a little bit of everything. So hopefully there'll be something in there that you can find. As always, thank you so much for joining me, for listening to me yap about books, and I will see you very, very soon in the next one. Bye!